Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Neera Wadhwani and thank you so much for joining us today. So in the last event, we had Prasad sharing with us about how to rapidly generate UX solutions. And we also had UX ideation workouts along with that.
So Neerav, your microphone is really bad. आपका audio ढंग से नहीं आ रहा है.
Okay.
So let me take over. Okay. Next time, get your microphone done, and then we can have a better quality. So, okay. So in this session, what I want to talk about is something that all of us have to do, and all of us struggle with while we are doing this, which is, you have to build a product, and we have to now ideate. And what do we do for ideation? How should we do our ideation? Okay. And we have a fixed amount of time, and we have a fixed amount of resources. So what should we do? Okay. So if one of you guys can share your screen, that'd be great. Awesome. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay. And it's going to be a back and forth kind of a conversation. But I want you to think about a specific problem. Okay. And the problem is, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Here's the problem. You've just joined a startup. Okay. That is trying to build a ChatGPT competitor. Okay. The founders basically told you that they want it to be a global product. It's going to be competing globally. And they're basically looking to you and say, you are a designer, give me amazing ideas. Okay. Now, you had some discussion with the founders, what is the problem, what are the issues and all that. And you basically came up with two interesting challenges that the founder is trying to solve. The first challenge that they say is, see, ChatGPT is there, there is Copilot is there. These are all products that are going live. Okay. So I want to compete with these guys. And in the process of competing with these guys, my biggest challenge is everybody knows about the competitors. Nobody knows about me. Okay. That's going to be a huge challenge. The second challenge that they're saying is, listen, I want you to specifically create an experience where people can manage their account. So once they do some searches and they engage with the system and they come back again, they need to be able to see their history. Okay. They need to be able to see all their queries and stuff like that. So the idea there is, I want to create some kind of a system where people can access their history. Okay. Now the question for you is, where are you going to take inspirations from? Where will you go? Go ahead, Achyut.
Sir, I might not be able to clearly point on the part, how do I catch attention for against a very famous product. But for the second part, if it is account management so that people can access their history, what I would prefer to do is refer to websites like Mobin and Page Flows, where there are existing solutions. I would go check there if I can find inspiration for these. Of course, I would look at competitive.
So where would you go again?
Websites like Mobin, Page Flows, where they have established flows of existing products. And also, what I have learned from your sessions is I also usually go to UI patterns, because for all the patterns, there are quickly pros and cons available. For me, rather than trying to think of it, it's very quick for me to do variabilization.
Okay. So essentially, you are going to go to websites that have design patterns, and you're going to look at those design patterns to see which ones work for you.
Yeah, and also if the flow is specified like this, I would also try to see the apps that are immediately accessible for me. For example, history, I would try to see how the history is being managed on a browser, different places, rather than just that specific product, because I might be able to
So I
bring in.
like that solution. The only challenge though is what I am worried about is, are you rebuilding the system from the ground up? Because if you're taking specific UI inspirations, then at the end of the day, you have to convince the CEO that this way works. Then you have no data to say whether a pattern A or pattern B is better.
Right.
Okay. So that is one challenge. But I do like the idea. I like the direction in which you're going. All right. Any other ideas? Okay. So let's actually go on to the next slide. Let's think this through. Okay. The way you want to approach this problem is to basically say, well, what is the problem? Okay. So one simple thing that most people will probably do is they will look at ChatGPT. How is ChatGPT doing? Okay. They will look at probably Copilot. All the competitors I've talked about, you'll probably do a competitor analysis. Okay. But the core issue that is in there when you're doing the competitor analysis is you're struggling with why would somebody do it, right? Why would somebody use your product? So when you think about it, the one important thing that you should think about is, well, what is the problem, right? Now, the problem that is there is number one, the core problem is how do companies get people to try their product in a crowded market or where somebody is already so good that nobody is going to think about it. Okay. So, for example, somebody's created Bharat GPT. Okay. Now, my question is, how many of you have even tried Bharat GPT here? Right? Pretty much zero. Okay. Even though there's a huge amount of PR around in the newspaper, this is India's GPT for Indic languages, all that stuff. None of us were even curious to go try it. Right? That is a huge challenge when you're creating a product in a market that is very crowded or you have one product that is so dominant, then how do you actually get their attention? Okay, that's one aspect. Then the other aspect is, well, once you've identified those problems, then how are you identifying other companies or other domains that have solved the same problem? Okay, so that is where you're kind of approaching it. So now when you look at it, now let's see what other ways you can solve it. Okay, so your core issue is whatever account management software, and this is very interesting. The trick question was account management because you'd say, oh, I want to see how people create login experiences. That's not the trick, right? If you create a login, when should you create the login? Should you create it before people try, after people try? What should it be? What is your logic? What's your rationale? Those are the things that you need to worry about because your biggest problem is nobody will even try you. Okay, everybody on the same page with this? Okay. Now, let's actually look through some of the examples. So we are going to look at similar other companies that have done the same thing. Okay. Or maybe let's stop here. Don't go anywhere, but think through it. Right. So which other companies are doing it? Right? When you look at e-commerce, it's an extremely busy market space. Okay. How do e-commerce companies do it? Okay. They do a lot of SEO. They try to be the first couple of results up there. Okay. They do a lot of advertisement. If you look at Temu ka advertising and how, I don't know, are you guys familiar with Temu? So it's a company in the US. It's a Chinese company in the US that basically sells products for 120% of what Amazon will sell it for. Okay. But the only problem is it's coming from China, so you have no guarantee whether it works or not or what the challenge is. So people have questions about quality. So that's, I guess, that's the same as Shin in India, I guess. Is that what it is?
I guess I heard a lot about Sheen in the US also. In India, it is banned.
Okay. All right. So when you think about those kinds of products, okay, how do they do that? Okay. So they are basically thinking, well, what is my differentiation? If I'm entering a market like the US, what is my differentiation? Okay. I'm saying I'm going to sell for 20% of what you'll get on Amazon. Now you got a differentiation that people will think about. Okay. So the same thing, if you're looking at Bharat GPT, well, what is Bharat GPT's differentiation? There is no differentiation other than the fact that it was developed in India for Indian languages. There is no other differentiation. Right? So there is a challenge there where is that product solving my problem? Or is it just there because it is appealing to my sense of patriotism or whatever and trying to get me to use it? Okay. So patriotism and those kinds of sense of morality, whatever, may not work. What would really work is if I'm solving a problem that you have as a customer. Okay. So the problem in the US, especially that Timu basically solved was they said, listen, cost is a huge deal. Inflation is a huge deal. So how do I give you access to stuff that is not affected by inflation? Okay. Now, can you think of any other example where they did differentiation that way? Think about browsers. Chrome was the dominant browser. Who's the competitor now? Go ahead, Ramandeep.
Yeah. So Arc browser, I think nowadays has picked up like really well. And
There's Arc, there's Brave. So what is the differentiator? Why should you use Arc or Brave?
so for the Arc specifically, they have like position like they're reimagining the how browser has been so far with introducing the AI in it and using
Okay.
it
So
like
Arc is essentially AI enabled. So that is
yeah.
what the thing is. But is it really solving your problem? Maybe, maybe not. If you look at Brave, for all the people that are privacy concerns, they say Brave will block all these, JavaScripts automatically, right?
Yeah.
There's a huge privacy issue that everybody has. Like, what do you know about me? Now Brave is basically solving that, right? Now you can see when you position a new product in the market, differentiation is a huge deal. And differentiation starts at design itself, right? If you're saying I'm doing a product, like if you look at Brave, right up there, it tells you how many pop-ups blocked, how many script blocked, how much data blocked, how much it saved you on your data, all those data points it's giving you, right? Now, those are the design things that you need to think about that will enable people to get excited about your product. Okay, so now let's actually go to the next slide. Okay, one of the other things that most of these companies are doing, this is the Chrome versus Brave. Let's go to the next one. No, go back. There's one more slide, isn't it? Go back.
Back.
No, you're going forward. You have to go in the opposite direction. Yeah. So this is where it is, where you're lowering barriers. So again, when you look at e-commerce, you can pretty much put everything into your cart and check out. In a lot of cases, where you don't have to worry about security. For example, airline tickets. You can literally check out without creating an account. Okay. And what airline says, if you want to come back and modify your reservation, you need to have an account. Okay. So they are giving an incentive, an additional incentive for a longer term relationship. Okay. But in the absence of that longer term, you are still able to get your job done very, very fast. Okay. And these are, again, when you think about e-commerce or airline tickets and all that, they've already done it. So now let's go down 2 slides and then I'll talk about how you should be thinking about it. Okay. So now when you're taking inspiration, I would actually take inspiration from the Googles, right? The Microsofts, because what Microsoft is doing is they're doing distribution. Okay. They have, they control all the Windows machines. And so they have built Copilot into their operating system right there. So Nirav, go down 2 slides. So yeah. So Microsoft is basically working on its distribution and creating a uniqueness. So now the question is, well, what are the advantages for the company, right? Does my company have a distribution? Okay. Does my company have, is it working on a specific domain? Okay. Maybe you're just doing it for designers. Maybe you're just doing it for, a specific user base. Maybe you're doing it for a specific problem. Maybe you're doing it for a company. So those are the ways that you're thinking through. So how have they solved it? How are other companies solved it, right? If you look at payment models, if you look at Google and Amazon, they give you a free tier for 1 year. And after that 1 year, they start billing you. So that's a solution that you can apply, right? Or you can basically start thinking about, create a guest experience. You don't have to even create an account, but if you want to see your history, you give your email address, right? Or you're basically saying, create, help people create a account after they've tried. So in exchange, so that's one way. So then guest account is there. The other one, you throttle people's traffic. Okay. There's so many companies that throttle the experience, that reduce the experience of a product after a certain while until you say, okay, you need to sign up to get the experience. Okay. So that's an experience that you do. Or what about, you get pieces of information and you gradually upsell them. Okay. So these are all models that other companies have done. And so when you start looking at so many other companies, so many other models, now when you go back to your founder and you say, okay, listen, I think this model will work, you now have case studies. Google did it, they were able to do that. Or like even if you look at Google virality, right? So you can sign up now, but it is a viral thing. So you need to get invited to use a product. So you can say all these companies have done this. Now we can create a similar kind of experience, and therefore you have that benefit. Because at the end of the day, whatever choice you do, you have to convince somebody of it, isn't it? So notice what I'm saying here. I'm not saying it is important to do the design, right? It's obviously important. That's basic hygiene. But what I'm saying is more important, once you do the design, is you need to convince people that your solution is the best, and you need to convince them with a logical reasoning behind it, isn't it? And what is also important, if you look at my whole discussion, I have not talked a single thing about design. I have not talked about UI, isn't it? I have talked about the business case. How should your product succeed in a market environment? Isn't it? So this is really important, because especially in today's world where companies are holding every individual accountable, now you need to be thinking about what the business case is. Right? And you need to be able to convince all your stakeholders so they are aligned with what you want to do and they are your biggest supporters. And that is how I would approach the ideation process. Any questions or thoughts, guys? Go ahead, Achut.
So just wanted to clarify, so you're saying it's better to start ideation based on the business level by after trying to understand what's the problem and how it has been solved by others.
Exactly. Because if you can say, well, Google did this, they had this much impact, right? So and so did this, they had this much impact. You can explain to them what your business challenges are and say, here are companies that have approached it, and that's why we need to think about it from this perspective, right? Or if you say, well, I'm going to create all these features for privacy, your stakeholders should understand, why are you spending so much time on privacy? What is the differentiation? Isn't
Okay.
it? So
Yeah.
you have to think through that. You have to be able to convince them that your direction is an appropriate direction. Otherwise, you're just ideating, then tomorrow somebody else will have an idea. Day after tomorrow, somebody else will have an idea. What are you going to do eventually? You're just going to push pixels and keep redesigning the same product over and over again.
True. So, sir, would this kind of a pitch also help you convince if there are product managers in the organization?
Absolutely. I think this is the way you need to approach it.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yes.
user needs is again your job, right? So if you're thinking as a designer, research is part of your game.
Got it. Yeah.
Isn't it? So if you're grounding everything in user needs and you're saying this is what the user's need is, and that is why this is how we need to differentiate, you got an opportunity to convince.
Got it. So half of the job is actually the pitch is convincing.
Yes, exactly. It's bringing the data to the table so you can convince people why your approach is right. Okay.
Got it.
And once you build that reputation of a data-centric designer within your organization,
Yeah.
it becomes very rich. Right? So you have built the credibility, now it's not going anywhere. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So the main thing that I would say, the takeaways in this, and after this, you guys are going to do a little exercise. You're going to follow the same thing. So there's going to be breakout rooms. So at this point, I'm assuming it's Achut, Akash, Ramandeep, Shivangi, and Vishnu are going to be the people that are going to be doing this. So number one, look beyond direct competitors. Look at the problem. What problem are you trying to solve? Okay. The second one is understand at a problem by problem level. Okay. Take each problem and say, what are the competitors? What are the principles underlying that problem and who are the competitors? Okay. How are you going to improve the experience? And then think about how you're going to, what are the needs that can help you differentiate? Okay. Simply copying your direct competitors is not going to differentiate you. You're going to die. Your product will die. Okay. Sorry, my laptop ran out of battery because of all the travels. So anyways, so at this point, we're gonna stop the live stream. Okay. Now, what I want you guys to do is get into the rooms. Okay. And let's take a problem and work on it. Okay. So can we stop the stream, Nirav?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So here's a problem that you've been given.